Hello and welcome to another episode of the Smaulgld speculation series. This is going to focus on what do the appointments of Joseph de Genova and his wife and John Bolton mean to the Trump team. Now, Donald Trump recently tweeted, as the House Intelligence Committee has concluded there was no collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. Put that aside as political grandstanding. The next portion of the tweet is what's important. As many are now finding out, however, there was tremendous leaking, lying, and corruption at the highest levels of the FBI, justice, and state. Drain the swamp. Highest level of the FBI being Mueller, McCabe, Comey. Highest level of justice, you're talking about Loretta Lynch. Donald Trump does not put out statements of fact like this, like he did that the Trump Tower had been bugged by Obama, unless he actually knows this to be the case. He is actually signaling right here, right now on March 17th, that he's saying there was tremendous leaking, lying, and corruption at the highest levels of the FBI, justice, and state, which means that I believe he is going to go after those highest levels. And I'm going to show you why I believe that. Now, recently, McCabe got fired. Now, he was a deputy director of the FBI. A lot of people were trying to spin in the media, CBS, ABC, Washington Post, New York Times, all media outlets that have been deemed very friendly to the FBI and the CIA as ones where they are used for some of these leaks that have happened. So they appear to be generally have been on what you call the deep state's side and operated as their mouthpiece. Well, when McCabe got fired, they went into overdrive. They tried to make it appear as if McCabe got fired not for any wrongdoing that was found as a result of what was in the Inspector General report that the FBI Director Wray had seen that led to McCabe's early retirement a couple of weeks ago that was encouraged by the FBI Director. They didn't focus on the fact that the FBI internal investigation recommended that he be fired. No, they focused on the fact that somehow Trump fired him to prevent him from getting his pension, and also that later on they reported that McCabe had led an investigation or wanted to have a criminal investigation into Jeff Sessions. Again, making it look like now Jeff Sessions also had reason to, quote, obstruct justice and fire McCabe. However, what this all really is, that's in the short, just the context of his firing. If you look at it in the grand scheme of things, actually is a much bigger deal. It ties into the narrative that the FBI at the highest levels, the State Department and Justice, actually were trying to decapitate Trump and his deputy Sessions as a result of Trump getting elected and Hillary not being elected. Now, if you look at some of the things surrounding McCabe, some of the wrongdoing that he did, changing information in the 302s, his direct ties to Clinton, his wife receiving campaign money, there's clearly a case that McCabe, Strzok, Page, and a lot of the people working on the Clinton investigation and then on the Trump investigation afterwards were clearly biased against Trump. There's a story here that maybe McCabe was promised promotion, FBI director by Hillary Clinton. But again, Comey is also seen as a person who's anti-Trump and also pro-Clinton. Now, the fact that McCabe was looking to probe Sessions criminally, which probe later got dropped, shows that he was definitely on the side of trying to take down Trump. And it makes sense that he might try to do that as part of this grand plan to act as an insurance policy. And the fact that Trump got elected, they'd have to take down Trump, they'd have to take down Sessions. And the fact that they got a special counsel appointed in Mueller, and also that they got Flynn to cop a plea, and that they got Sessions to recuse himself, was a major early victory by the deep state. Now, let's go on to Mueller before we talk about de Genova and Bolton. The other part of this whole narrative that they're pushing about Mueller is that he's beyond reproach. He's one of the greatest guys with the highest integrity, great record as a FBI director, long-standing service. Anything he comes up with is going to have to be the truth, nothing but the truth. Now, it's been pointed out that everyone on his staff and his deputy are all ardent Democrats, anti-Trump people. Now, that sounds very strange. And of course, there's been a big push to have Mueller removed, at least from some sources. Now, what's interesting, for some people on the president's side, what's interesting about so far who has been fired of the people that are against Trump? Well, they've been Comey and McCabe, but both of them were not fired at the whim of Donald Trump. They were fired as a result of people in the FBI recommending Comey, which is Rosenstein, that he get fired, and then also that McCabe get fired. So I don't think Trump is going to fire Mueller. There's no reason to fire Mueller, because you'll see in a minute why he is probably also in the crosshairs, and they're probably most likely going to go after Mueller the same way they go after Comey, McCabe, and Lynch, and the rest of them. Now, let's just quickly talk about Mueller, though, again, before we get to Genova and Bolton. Mueller does not have a great track record. 17 years ago, this person writes, he's FBI director and was repeatedly warned by flight schools of Saudi students taking lessons on only taking off aircraft and not landing it. Doesn't sound like very competent there. There's also the issues around, any of you seen the Whitey Bulger movie, I think it's called Black Mass, where the FBI in Boston deputized a mobster to go around to gain evidence, and the guy became a monster because he basically was immune. And guess who was the Attorney General at the time? Robert Mueller. Uranium One, there appears to be a connection with Robert Mueller. He was involved with the Clinton email investigation. Comey reported to Robert Mueller. Apparently, Mueller also botched an anthrax case back around 9/11 where he pursued the wrong guy for 5 years. So he doesn't have a history, at least the quick digging that I've done, of being the greatest and most honest and involved in the great sleuthing up to snuff sleuthing that would be beyond reproach. Now, let's get into what's actually happening at the Justice Department. People have ridiculed Jeff Sessions, have said that he is asleep at the wheel, that he has not been faithfully executing his duties, and Trump has lambasted him in tweets, basically saying, how come the DOJ is not doing this? How come Sessions isn't doing that? The Inspector General report's not going to get us everything. Well, this could be a case of Sessions just playing dumb. I mean, he could be incompetent, and he could be not doing his job, but it almost seems incomprehensible that Trump would not talk to him and ask him to do things. And I believe he actually has, and I believe that because Trump is known for using Twitter and known for lambasting people publicly on Twitter, that he figures he can get in a free one at Sessions, knowing that Sessions is actually behind the scenes working. And the reason I think that is, on this March 7th interview, they were talking about the Inspector General's report, and Sessions said he has appointed a person outside of Washington, many years in the Department of Justice, to look at all the allegations that the House Judiciary Committee sent us, and we are conducting that investigation. Well, how do you think Trump knows, if you just scroll back up to here, as many are now finding out, there was tremendous leaking, lying, and corruption at the highest levels of the FBI, Justice, and State. Now, he doesn't just make that up and put it out in a tweet, as many as detractors may wish to believe that Trump just makes stuff up and tweets it. No, he probably knows that directly from what Sessions is telling him. The Inspector General's report apparently has 500. See, the problem, just so you know this, with the Congress has no ability to criminally charge anyone. They do investigations. They request documents. However, the Congress is complaining that they're not getting all the documents from Justice. They're not getting what they need. Well, there's probably a reason for that. Yes, they want to hide stuff, but also, if you're running a criminal investigation, you can't give out evidence to Congress for Congress then to produce in public, because you damage the ability to conduct your criminal investigation and actually charge people. You don't want that information out in the public. So we have learned some damning information about Strzok and Page and their intent to take down Trump. We have learned some things about McCabe. We have learned by his own admission that Comey has leaked information. We know that Brenner, Clapper, these people have done things that have been illegal, but we don't know the full scope of their actions. Now, we can assume they're illegal, or we can assume they're illegal. I'm just assuming that they're illegal for purposes of this speculation. So, what does this mean for Genova being appointed? Well, 2 months ago, Genova gave this interview, and on, I think it was on the Daily Caller, and he basically outlined the plot that the people inside the FBI were working to help Hillary Clinton get elected, help exonerate her with the Department of Justice so that she could run for president, be elected president, and then they also concocted this plan that if she didn't get elected, that they would take Trump down via the Russian narrative. That is Genova's belief. Now, who is this guy to even say this stuff, believe this stuff? Well, he and his wife were both appointed to Trump's team, both served in government. I think Genova was a former FBI guy. They were both special counsel for certain committees in Congress. So they both know the lay of the land. They know how this stuff works. Now, Genova is a prosecutor, seems like. He's not. So the top guy for Trump left, and this guy, Genova, joins. This, to me, signals something big. The whole issue that they've been talking about with Trump and why his lawyer left was because his lawyer and basically legal scholars and even Fox commentators and the judge, Anthony Napolitano, have suggested rightfully that meeting with Mueller, the president meeting with Mueller, would be a mistake. And that's good legal advice, because if the president goes before Mueller, he may think he's smart. There's a whole bunch of stories you can learn from legal practitioners will tell you, you're always better off keeping your mouth shut than to talk to police officers, to talk to people, because they can always catch you in a lie. Even though you may think you're saying something harmless, they can somehow entrap you. And they believe that's what's happened to Flynn. They believe, and McCabe is going to argue that's what happened to him. Anybody who opens their mouth and says something could be subject to a charge of perjury, a charge of lying, a charge of something. So they're saying it's best for him not to meet with Mueller. And they're saying that the reason that this lawyer quit was over that. Now, I think there may be something to do with that. But I think it's now the reason that this guy quit and Genova and his wife are now involved is because Trump is now taking his legal defense from defense to offense, from hunted to hunter. He knows that they have plotted against him. Now, again, this is speculation, but there is a narrative out there, and it's well documented, that many in the FBI, Department of Justice, and Department of State, as Trump set up in the tweet up at the top, worked to exonerate Hillary, and then if she lost, to take out Trump and Sessions. There's evidence in text messages and other actions that this is exactly what they wanted to do. And then there's evidence just in how this is played out that that's what they're trying to do. Now, I think there's a counter investigation going on, including the Inspector General's report, in which the outside prosecutor has the details. I think indictments are going to start flying in the other direction towards Mueller, the FBI, his team, Department of State, Department of Justice. Now, just kidding aside, I'm saying perhaps Trump wants to meet with Mueller to serve him, not with his dismissal, but with a subpoena for evidence to corroborate the counterintelligence his Attorney General and DOJ have gathered. So, as we saw with Sessions, they are investigating this. This has been ongoing for over a year now. Genova is aware of what's going on. He understands the narrative, that what to look for in terms of the people working inside the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Justice, and the Department of State to undermine Trump. This has been investigated. A lot of this stuff is known to Trump. Some of it's in the yet-to-be-published Inspector General's report. There are people at the FBI who've seen it. I wouldn't be surprised if Sessions hasn't seen drafts. There's also been stuff that has been published that the congressional committees have seen. They haven't seen everything, but they've seen stuff that we haven't seen. That has been passed along to Sessions. Those accusations are also being investigated. So I think Trump is well aware of where the state of play is right now, what the lay of the land is. The rest of us in the public are not aware of what the lay of the land is. All we know is that Mueller is going after Trump, and he's going to get him for collusion or obstruction of justice. Mueller, however, may himself be the target of this investigation. So having the Genova on the team helps Trump go on the offensive. The old lawyer, the guy who quit, meaning the former lawyer who quit, doesn't serve this purpose. The old lawyer was a defense attorney. He now has on his staff a guy who's going to go after, I believe, the investigative type attorneys that are going to go after or help Trump understand as the Department of Justice goes after the FBI and former Department of Justice officials and former State Department officials. And again, it's interesting to know that only McCabe and Comey have been fired, but they've been fired on the recommendations of the FBI himself, of FBI itself. Rosenstein recommended Comey be fired, and the FBI director, Wray, encouraged McCabe to step down as his deputy FBI director, and the FBI internal investigation recommended McCabe be fired. So there's no obstruction of justice there because those followed internal recommendations, not Trump's whim, as if would be if he were to fire Mueller. Now, I believe that Strzok, Page, Priebus, these guys have not been fired. Even though they've made these blatant anti-Trump statements, they were taken off the investigation by Mueller, but they were not fired. They were just taken off, and they weren't even publicized that they were taken off the investigation. There was a lot of damning evidence in what we've seen, and we haven't seen everything. We've only seen what's been redacted. Apparently, some of the texts have gone missing, but apparently the Inspector General has them. I would imagine that Sessions has seen them. He knows what they've been up to. And again, the speculation is no good. So I think they are gathering evidence on these individuals. Maybe these individuals are in the process of flipping, and or they're continuing to be under surveillance now in the same way, but probably under proper surveillance techniques for the same way that the Trump people were. That these are people now that the tables have turned on them. They are now probably gone from being the investigators to the investigatees. And notice also in the latest Donald Trump tweet on Clapper. Now, he's the former head of the CIA. See, you got these CIA guys, NSA guys, all trashing Trump. All these, Comey trashing Trump. They're all trashing Trump after they're fired. This is not the same show of strength of having the CIA, the FBI silently knocking you off when you don't know about it. They're complaining on Twitter because they don't, at least I suspect they no longer have the same power as if they would have if they were in office at the head of the FBI, at the head of the CIA, at the head of the NSA. But here again, Trump says, today, House Intelligence Committee findings votes to release final reporting findings. No evidence of Trump collusion. That again, political grandstanding. Obama administration post-election response was insufficient. Political grandstanding. Excuse me. Clapper provided inconsistent testimony on media contacts. That's huge. He's basically saying Clapper lied, and he's saying media involvement. It's another important thing. CBS, NBC, Washington Post, New York Times. All these entities seem to be the recipients of these leaks. And they're also the ones who post stories like McCabe was running a criminal investigation into Sessions, and that's why he got fired. They're not showing you the big picture. They're trying to show you a spin to keep the average person on the side against Trump. But Trump seems to be fully aware of what's coming at him, and he seems to be preparing. Now, that's why we've got Genova and we've got his wife on the team. I think they're preparing Trump to be more offensive and less on the defensive against Mueller. Now, why Bolton? Now, Bolton makes no sense. Bolton is known by people who aren't even paying attention as the poster boy for neocons, the poster boy for American intervention, anytime, anywhere, for any reason. So hiring Bolton, the biggest war hawk neocon, I think the reason Trump hired him, it's not because Trump wants to go around and bomb every country indiscriminately, which is what the Washington Post is saying why Bolton was hired. This is Trump's true colors. I think he's hiring Bolton as a signal not to mess with the United States during the time needed to expose and prosecute the domestic issue of internal corruption. Bolton helps ensure no foreign distractions, no rogue false flags that will require the U.S. to get involved, because if you have Bolton there, it acts as a deterrent. Now, Trump can fire Bolton later, but I think he has Bolton in there, and he can fire him because Bolton will want to go bomb somebody, and Trump will say, we're not bombing, you're fired. Because Bolton's interventionist mindset doesn't fit with this America First agenda. So I think perhaps he serves in another capacity. He's helping to aid in draining the swamp. His presence alone, not his policies. I also think Bolton puts teeth behind the seriousness of the sanctions. So I think the Genova being on Trump's defense team is for offense, and Bolton being on Trump's national security team is for defense, not for offense. Now, here's Trump again. Watch Comey lie under oath to Senator G when asked, have you ever been an anonymous source and known somebody else to be an anonymous source? Basically, he was asked that, and Comey said no. And McCabe said that, indeed, Comey authorized McCabe's leaks to the press. He strongly said no. He lied, as clearly shown on Fox and Friends. So Donald Trump cannot be sitting on information where he actually believes that Comey lied, Comey leaked, and his attorney general is aware that he said this, and 70 million people are aware that Trump is aware, that somehow Comey is going to escape some type of prosecution? No way. No way. They make it sound like Trump is he's just up there tweeting away and he has no consequence. No one's going to pay attention to him. He's not the president. He doesn't have the Department of Justice under him. He doesn't run the FBI now, basically. That somehow Comey's going to get away with this and that Mueller is going to take him down. They may want to believe that, and that's how the media is portraying this. But in a sense, Trump is more in the driver's seat than Clapper, Comey, McCabe are, because they don't have jobs anymore in government. And then Trump says here, the fake news is beside themselves that McCabe was caught, called out, and fired. How many thousands of dollars was given to his wife, campaigned by crooked Hillary's friend, Terry McAuliffe, who was also under investigation? How many lies? How many leaks? Comey knew it all and much more. Much more. Not maybe P.T. Barnum, but he knows much more. Donald Trump does. The Mueller probe never should have been started. There was no collusion. There was no crime. That is true. If they were worried about Russian collusion in general, and a Senate or a House investigative committee could have investigated that. There did not have to be a special counsel appointed. It did not have to focus on the Trump campaign. It would have focused on Russia in general. And they'd be subpoenaing people from the Clinton campaign and the Sanders campaign and the Jill Stein. And they would have been looking into Russian, not necessarily collusion, but interference. No, this was directly done in order to get a special counsel to go after Trump to try to get him tossed out. And that's why it was based on fraudulent activities and a fake dossier paid for by crooked Hillary Clinton and the DNC, which improperly used in FISA court for surveillance of my campaign witch hunt. Now, he may be clearly biased towards himself, but there's evidence to indicate that everything he said there is true. Well, that's what I think, or at least that's my speculation. Let me know what you think.